If a nuclear bomb goes off in your city right this minute, do you live through it? And if you do, are you prepared to survive what comes next? All right, guys, before we get started, don't forget to go onto the 2 Alpha Training Group website, sign up for our newsletter so you can be up to date on all the new courses, events, and other collaborations we're a part of. And also, you'll be in the know on the newest merch that comes out. For example, if you want this t-shirt that I'm wearing right here, this is the Low Light SoCal Surf Club shirt. Well, you need to get one of these. Otherwise, again, subscribe to the channel so you can help us grow and help us bring more content like this to you guys. Let's get the show on the road. Man, I really feel like the world is getting crazier and crazier these days. I mean, look at everything that is going on around the world with tensions rising, the type of leadership that we have at the helm. I mean, anything is possible. I feel like we're just getting closer and closer to some kind of global catastrophe that could come in the form of a nuclear war. And if a nuclear war happens, have you thought about a nuclear fallout plan? Now, this video is not to scare you or turn you into some kind of prepper, but it is food for thought to get you thinking about what would I do in a nuclear explosion kind of scenario, and how would I survive the fallout? How would I survive the next 30 days, the 60 days? Are you prepared to be able to survive? And there's a lot that goes into the word survive. We're going to break it all down for you guys. But if you're one to think like, well, this will never happen, then you're probably already behind a power curve. I mean, even now we have celebrities who are learning how to create safe rooms and build these nuclear bunkers, and everyone's kind of investing in this if they have the money and the opportunity. But even if you don't have a safe room or some kind of nuclear bunker, we can still be very prepared with plans, with gear, with skill sets, and all kinds of other, well, network and community. Let's not forget that. But then that can really help us set up for a successful kind of post-apocalyptic nuclear fallout plan. Man, that was a lot to say. All right, so there, let's talk about it all and kind of break all this down.
Well, back when I was in the Marines, they taught us that if they ever drop a really big bomb, they told us to hold up your thumb just like this. And if the cloud is smaller than your thumb, you run for the hills.
And if it's bigger than your thumb?
They told us not to bother running.
All right, one piece of cake coming up from my favorite cowgirl.
Is it your thumb or mine?
So in the clip, we see the little girl raising her thumb up to the mushroom cloud of the nuclear explosion, trying to see if she is in fact within the radiation zone or just outside of the radiation zone. However, in the show, they gave one little mistake wrong. It's not the stem, it's not the mushroom cloud that needs to be above your thumb. It needs to be the stem. If the stem of the mushroom cloud is above your thumb, then you are probably well within the radiation zone and you need to get out of there as fast as you can. However, if just the mushroom cloud is over your thumb, or if you cover up the mushroom cloud with your thumb, then you're probably outside of the radiation zone and you're probably safe for the most part. However, that doesn't mean you should stick around. You should probably continue to get away from the blast site because of all these different kind of layers of the blast site that we're going to talk about. Now, even if the stem is, let's say, covered up with your thumb, or even if the mushroom cloud is covered up with your thumb and you think you're safe, that doesn't necessarily mean you are, because again, we don't know the size of this nuclear explosion. We don't know the size of the city. We don't know how much of the conditions within that city or the weather conditions will affect how far that radiation zone will kind of travel from the blast site. So just because, again, the stem or the mushroom cloud is covered by your thumb, that doesn't mean you're exactly safe. We have other layers that we're going to get into, which means you need to get away from the blast site as fast as you can. According to scientists, if the average thumb does cover the entire stem of the mushroom cloud, it means that you're approximately 8 miles away from the blast site. 8 miles could be enough for you to be safe. However, again, with some of these conditions that we don't know and how they affected the blast and how they affect the actual the debris and the radiation and all those radioactive particles, 8 miles may not be enough. Now, in this video, we're using an 800 kiloton warhead in a average metropolis city, and we're doing an air detonation, meaning it's not going to blow up when it hits the ground. It's blowing up above the air. How far above the air? I don't know. A couple hundred feet, couple thousand feet. We don't quite know. A 800 kiloton warhead is about 100 times more powerful than when we dropped on Hiroshima. However, when it does explode, that 800 kiloton nuke also basically makes an 800 meter wide fireball. And that fireball is basically hot enough to almost be the equivalent of the sun, meaning that whatever is within that 800 meter radius of that explosion is going to be vaporized. It's going to be ash and dust, nothing left of it whatsoever. Now, outside of the 800 meters and up to 2 kilometers, pretty much anyone who is within that will not only get radiation poisoning, but also could, again, die instantly because of the heat levels.
It decided all humanity was a threat to its existence.
As you get further away up to that 11 kilometers, then there's less radiation poison at the moment, but what you can still get is third-degree burns. Third-degree burns are, it could be hot enough to even set your clothes on fire or set your skin on fire, but you will probably get third-degree burns if you're out on the outer kind of 11 kilometers of that radius. As well as the radiation sickness. Radiation sickness can take about a week to kill somebody. So even though you're not dead from the blast or from debris or whatever else, if you have radiation sickness, then you have pretty much about a week. Now, within those first 800 meters, we're estimating about 120,000 people dead. And then from the 2 to 11 kilometers, we're estimating about another 500,000 people dead. And again, these are numbers just based on the average metropolis size and using an 800 kiloton warhead with air detonation. Outside of the 11 kilometers, it's a little harder to say how many people would die just because, it could be rural land, it could be suburban. The population outside of the 11 kilometers also matters. If you're outside of the 11 kilometers, you have a better chance of survival, but not if you stick around, because the radioactive particles that are now in the air are being carried by the wind, the clouds, everything else, depending on the weather. And just because you're safe in the moment, it doesn't mean that you're safe from the particles that are now spreading from the weather and the winds. In this video, they estimate that another 100,000 people could die, maybe less or more, depending on, again, the terrain and what's within that terrain. But about 100,000 people could die. So from the blast site to just outside 11 kilometers, we're saying that almost 1 million people could perish either immediately or in the next couple of days following. Now, if this was a surface blast, then all these numbers that we've talked about so far would dramatically increase. I don't know if that's double or triple, quadruple, we don't know, but it would be a significant increase in numbers based on a surface blast versus an air blast, just because of the amount of damage that would be done on that surface level and how that spreads. So let's talk about preparation then. Are you prepared? So, do you have go bags? Do you have a go bag with weapons, for medical, for food and water, for family documents and heirlooms? Are you prepared to be able to grab these go bags, throw them in your car, and take off? And do you have go bags in your car? Do you need anything for your vehicle itself? Do you have any special needs for your children or your animals or anybody or anything that you're taking with you? These are all things that you have to consider, but at the minimum, having some go bags would be beneficial, because then you could have one designated for weapons and ammo, you could or tactical gear. You could have one designated for food and water, another one for medical supplies, and then you can finally keep one, for those family documents and heirlooms that are irreplaceable. But what weapons would you carry? Let's think about it. A nuke goes off. A lot of people just died. Your city or your entire area is in chaos. And now you and your family are trying to get out of there just like every other family. And everybody has the same idea. I need to protect my family. I need to get out of here. I need to have enough sustenance to last to make it to wherever I'm going, but also security. So what kind of weapons would you carry? Would you be tacked out in tactical gear? Would you carry just a pistol on you? Would you carry a rifle? Who's all being armed? Who's all going to provide the security for your party? Do you have communications? Who are you communicating with? Do they know you're coming? What is the rendezvous? We'll get into this a little bit later as well. Where will you go? Do you have routes planned? Do you have a rendezvous? Who are you meeting up with? What are you bringing to the table, and what can they provide you? These are all things that we should be talking about, or at least have planned out in that kind of emergency scenario where you have to now leave your home. Do you have locations scouted? If you're not meeting up with somebody, then where are you actually going? If you don't have locations scouted, then you may want to. Most people pick something where there's a family or a farm, somebody that they know, somebody that already knows that if this happens, that they'll come. You know, they already kind of have accommodated or will accommodate your needs and your family. But again, these are plans that have to be made. Do you have routes? Do you have secondary routes in case your primary is backed up or you don't have access? What about a tertiary route in case your secondary is backed up or you don't have access? You have to think ahead and understand where is everybody traveling from? How many people are going to try to take this road and this highway and this interstate to get out of town? And will you just be stuck in traffic now with all this happening? Or have you actually planned a route that might be kind of going around all the main routes and now you have to take some back roads and it'll take you longer, but at least you're not stuck and now in kind of danger from the elements. We talk about rendezvous points, but what about link ups? How are you going to link up with the people at this rendezvous site? Do you have a far recognition signal? How do they know you're coming? Do they have an ETA for you? And then when you get there, do you have a near recognition signal? Right? And how do they know that you are actually safe? How do they know that you're not under duress? Or how do you know that they're not under duress? When they meet up with you, or do you have some kind of code word or pro words that you use indicating that, yes, I'm actually safe, right? Otherwise, if you're just talking and they're under duress, how would you know that they're under duress without these code words that you guys came up with?
My name is Lucy McLean, and I'm an active contributor to the well-being of my community. Repair skills. I enjoy participating in the Young Pipers Association, which keeps me active. Science skills. Obviously, mine are nothing compared to my dad's, but I always relish a challenge. Speech skills. My primary passion is teaching American history with a focus on ethics. I also participate in gymnastics club, fencing team C, intermediate phys ed, and I dabble in riflery. Though I'm not very good. In my personal time, I enjoy taking walks and watching movies with my dad. Gardening, also with my dad.
What about your own training? The skill sets that you bring, the skill sets that you possess, the training that you possess. How can you use this now to your advantage? How can it give you a upper hand, against everybody else? Maybe it's just your gun handling, and that's fine, but you need a lot more than gun handling if you're trying to plan routes and rendezvous and link ups and security and supply routes. And these are all things that have to be planned out. How are you at land navigation? What if all electronics go out the window? Do you know your cardinal directions? Do you know how to read a map? Do you know how to plot points? Do you know how to shoot azimuths? Do you have a pace count? These are all things that we need to consider. Let's talk about force protection. It would be naive of us to think that when we're out there now, post-apocalyptic world, that we may not link up with people, strangers that we meet, people that, may need help, people that want to join your group. How do you vet these people?
When you say it like that, I mean, yeah, it's it's weird.
You armed?
No!
Yes, we are.
Are you armed?
No.
Hey! We're walking towards you!
There's no one here but us and them.
Said they're not armed.
They're lying.
You're lying.
What's happening over there?
Yeah, we're just being careful. You can come on through.
How do you make sure that they're not tricking you? How do you build rapport? How do you gain trust with these people? to make sure that they're not going to take advantage of you, rob you, kill you. So because again, everyone's in self-preservation mode and they're looking out for themselves and theirs. So again, there has to be a way to vet, a way to build rapport, and then also trust.
How about on the count of 3, we all raise up our arms?
We already said we don't have any weapons.
And neither do we!
Well, either way, could we just give it a try? Okay, great. Hands up on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
What about just the elements? What about the wild animals? What about the weather? Are we prepared for the weather that's at hand? Are we prepared for the environmental conditions? What if we have to live out in the woods for a few days? Do we have what it takes to be able to build a fire? Do we have the skill sets and the know-how? Build a lean-to or some kind of shelter site? And what about wild animals? What if are we protected from these wild animals? Do we have the guns, or do we have mace, or what do we have to protect us? And speaking of campsites, what about a base defense security plan? What happens if there is an attack on your base?
Tomorrow, so they say, will be a lovely day. A bright new sun will suddenly break through. But I don't want to see tomorrow unless I see it with you.
What happens if there are signals of different threats? Do you have a perimeter kind of established? Do you have something of an early warning system? How do you know that people can't just walk up to your campsite, walk up right on you when you're sleeping? Is there a security plan in place to make sure that you are informed in case somebody is walking up on you?
They're testing their perimeter.
How intelligent are they?
Gorillas are very smart, but they're not aggressive. These things are very aggressive.
I'd say they're smart. They're too damn smart. They're out there. But what are they doing?
Monroe?
What about vehicles? How many vehicles are you rolling with? What does your convoy look like? What is the convoy kind of formation? How do you have security? Where is your security kind of established, or where is your security pointing towards when you are moving down the highways, moving down these roads? What about security when you guys are all parked? What does your vehicle formation look like? Is it a 360 with everybody facing outboard? Or what does that look like? What happens if you're in a vehicle convoy and all of a sudden you get ambushed on the road? What happens if there's a blockage in the road and you have to get out? What if there's people there?
Yeah, it's Clyde. This is it.
Yeah, we need some help with that.
Stick 'em up.
Right? There's all kinds of things that can happen, even though you're in vehicles and somewhat protected, you know, and so we have to be prepared. We have to have SOPs for an ambush. We have to have SOPs for a downed vehicle. What if your vehicles go down? Do you have a bump plan to get everybody in the another vehicle and all their stuff? And what about a rest plan? I mean, where you're going to need rest. Everyone's going to be exhausted. Everyone's going to be stressed out, overwhelmed. No one knows what's really going on or what to do. But what does your rest plan look like? How many people need to stay up and pull fire watch or fire guard while everybody else gets to sleep, right? And how many hours does that shift look like? What level of security do you need? And what about the security equipment and assets? Do you have actual assets that could give you better security than what you have? Can you set up a perimeter? Does it take some string and empty cans to rattle so that if somebody's walking up on you, you can hear that? Or do you have something better? What about resupply? Do you have a resupply plan? Where do you get more food from? Where do you get more water, medical supplies, ammo, guns? You know, how are you going to go about reacquiring some of these things if you're out in the woods? What happens if you're in the city? Are you going to go loot a grocery store? Or are you going to go in the woods and try to hunt? And are you going to a pharmacy and loot that? I mean, at this point, the law and order is kind of out the window. As much as the authorities would want to try to keep kind of, you know, control of the population and some law and order, but for the most part, grocery stores are getting looted, hospitals, pharmacies are getting looted. Anything that has the type of supplies that we need are probably getting looted. So now, do you just walk in there and grab it? Or do you go in there and tack kit and rifles, guns up, and, you know, take stuff? And, you know, ask yourself, even now when you're preparing, how much do you have now? How much food, water, medical supplies, weapons, ammo do you have now? How long will that sustain you? Where can you get more? Do you have cache sites? Do you need to make cache sites in case you got to come back? What are some of the security considerations for how to get those things? And then also, what is your long-term sustenance plan? I mean, a quick resupply to the grocery store is one thing, but do you have a plan when you get to where you're going? Can you grow more food? Can you dig a well? Can you get more water somehow? Again, we have to think about the long-term plan as we're trying to, you know, react to what just happened a couple hours ago, a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago. We still need to think ahead, because the more we plan, the more we think of contingencies and things that can go wrong. And then we can also plan for those contingencies in case they do. Now we're prepared. And also, when we talk about long-term plans, we have to think like big picture, as in repopulating the earth, as in rebuilding a community or building a new community somewhere. And again, this is after, you know, we vet people and we build some rapport. You know, we have some key leadership. You know, we have some essential personnel. We have law and order, and then expansion and repopulation. I mean, these are all things that need to happen. Without a community, you can't have the type of leadership to sustain that community. And without that leadership, you know, we also can't have communities within our community, as in the arms room, the hospital, the kitchen, you know, the infirmary, all these things that need to happen, basically where the essential personnel need to be in order for that to happen. Also, who's going to provide law and order at this place, this community that you have built? Who's going to be, in this case, the police, right, who keep the citizens of this community in check? And then how do we expand? And how do we repopulate? These are, again, all long-term kind of things that we need to think about. And this could take years, guys. But again, once you get to a place and you're going there, you have to immediately kind of give a structure, organization. Otherwise, it kind of falls apart. And now you have lawlessness and dissension. And before you know, your community falls apart. All right, guys. So I know that we covered a lot in this video. We covered things that would take years to even make happen. But again, this is food for thought. This is information that will help you kind of think to about your personal situation, where you live, your routes, your rendezvous, your, you know, the people in your network. Like all these things that we talked about is just really food for thought. And hopefully you guys give all this some thought and think about, well, what do we do if this happens? How do we get out of here? Where are we going? And then how do we survive? And then finally, how do we thrive in that post-apocalyptic world? All right, well, that is it for me and this video, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Again, we like to bring you guys this kind of, you know, content, but only if you guys enjoy it. And we only know that if you comment down in the comment section and you like it and you turn on your notifications and you see everything else that we're posting. But also go on to the 2 Alpha Training Group website, check out the schedule for this year and check out some of the events that we're a part of. We have some really cool things coming up this year that you may want to kind of join in on. And this is not a one and done deal. These are like programs where we are training people in pipelines. So check those out. Sign up for the newsletter as well, because there's a lot of information coming out with those. And that's it from us. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.